Welcome to the short tutorial on gradient shading using IDS. There are different ways that we can create gradient shading by using one layer or multiple layers. I'm first going to start out with one layer shading. And with one layer shading, if we right click on the object that we are wanting to change the densities on in order to create the shading effect, we select it. Now it is selected with blue and white flashing lines, and now I can go up to my property settings and left click. Once I left click on the property settings, I can do gradient shading in a couple of different stitch types. In this example, I'm going to show you in the complex fill. So I will left click on complex fill. Once complex fill is selected, I will left click on the complex tab. With the complex tab, I have the option to enable a gradient fill. When I left click inside the box next to enable gradient fill, I can now set the gradient. So I just placed a left click to place a check mark next to that, and then once I want to change that, I can click on set gradient. So I left click on that, and now my gradient window appears. How this setting works is that it has a gradient from 0 to 100%. In this setting, this is a default, and it starts at a 0.40 density, which is a 0.4 millimeter spacing between the rows of stitching at 0%. And this is the 0% over here on the left hand side. Now eventually, as it gets up to the 100% or to the end of the shape, it will open up to a 2.0 density. I can change the minimum and maximum densities up here, and I can also change, after I change the minimum and maximum here, I can also change it here. Let's just see what a basic gradient setting will do. I'll just go ahead and hit OK. Now one more thing that I want to do is go back to the basic setting within the area object stitch properties and left click on basic, and I will deselect use underlay. That way we won't see the underlay stitches when that density opens up. I'll go ahead and press OK, and when I press OK, I will then generate my stitches. One thing I want you to notice is that my stitch direction is going in about a 30-degree direction, so you'll see my gradient shading also going on a 30-degree direction. I'll hit the go button, and now you can see, I'll right click off to the side, that at the 0% it's very closed, and then it eventually opens up as it goes down here. One thing you see on the left hand side is traveling stitch, and the traveling stitch starts down here at the bottom, travels up, and then starts stitching and ends here. The reason I can tell that is when I right click on the area, the end point is down here and the out point is down here. If I take the end point, left click, hold, and drag that up into that corner, I will right click off to the side so that you can see the change. I'll go ahead and hit the go button, and now you'll see that traveling stitch go away because it doesn't have to travel up to this area. I will again right click on this segment, and what I will do is I will take my angle tool, I'll left click, hold, and drag, and I'll bring it to a 0%. You will see that change when I hit the go button, how that's going to gradient. Again, if I change it to maybe a 90 degree, you'll see how it will also change here. So as I change my angles, you're going to see the gradient also change. Now we'll right click on this area again. We'll go back up to our stitch settings and left click. We'll go to the complex tab at the top. I will go to the set gradient and left click on set gradient, and this time I'm going to change my density to open up to 4.0. That's my maximum. So then here I will also open it up to a 4.0. I'll go ahead and press OK and OK again. Let's go ahead and regenerate, and you're going to see wider spaces. That's because eventually it's going to go from a 0.4 density and expand to a 4.0 density. So the 4.0 density is going to be a larger, more open stitching because it has more space between the rows of stitching. let's revisit this and see how we can actually vary these densities as it goes through the design. So I'll go ahead and left click on the property settings. Within the complex fill, I will left click on the complex tab. We'll go to set gradient, and when I go to set gradient, you now see we're back in our gradient window, and it goes from 0.4 to 4.0 density, and just very gradual. What we can do is we can add lines and add percentages just by placing our cursor on the top line. Our cursor is still a cursor, but it has a plus sign next to it. So I'm going to add another point or another percentage. So if I left click on this, it adds another percentage point to where when it goes from 0 to 18% on that area, it's going to go from 0.4 density to 0.4 density. I can actually open it up, or just a little bit. Let's go ahead and do that. So from 0 to 18%, it's going to go from 0.4 to 1.1. I can add another, a third percentage, and then I can go back if I want to. I can also, change the percentages just by using the controls right within here. So when I get the up and down arrow, I can change the percentage where it's going to sit, and you can also see here how that is going to affect the density settings on that area. I can also alter the actual density setting just by dragging when the hand has two arrows, one pointing to the left and one pointing to the right. So I can keep adding these. I'm going to go ahead and pull this, and I can actually change this numerically, or I can just pull it on the bars here. I'll go ahead and press OK. I'll press OK again. Let's go ahead and regenerate our stitches, and now you can see the different gradation that I do have. Now I am controlling just one area on this, and that's the area that I have right click selected. So we're going to move on to another area. I'll go ahead and just draw a box. And when I draw that box with that right click selected, that means it is ready to be worked on because it's got the it's got the blue and white flashing lines going around it. If I want to do multiple layers, I can go up to Accessories, and I can go to Create Gradient Shading and left click. Once I left click there, I have the ability to choose what color my layers are going to be. My layer A is going to be the bottom layer, layer B is going to be the top layer. I'm just going to click on the color button for layer B and change that to a different color. Press OK. With this, as I change my densities as well as the percentages, first of all I'm going to change this back to 2.0 because it took that setting from what I had before. By default, the density on layer A is going to start at 0.4 and eventually open up to 2.0. The density on the right hand side, or layer B, will be the opposite. Since I went in and changed my settings, we see that it's not exactly the opposite. That is going from 2.0 to 2.0, which is not varying any density here as it goes from 0 to 100%. But if I use this arrow key in the middle and this arrow pointing to the right, the layer B will mimic layer A but opposite. So if I left click on this, it will go in an opposite direction. So at 0% it's going to be an open density, and as it goes down to 100% it's going to be a closed density. You can see that in here layer A is closed and then opens up, layer B is closed and then opens up in the opposite direction. We have the ability to change the directions like we did on the first square that we did. This would be the direction of your stitching, and your gradients are going to be affected by the direction. So we'll go ahead and leave them both at 45 degrees. We'll go ahead and press OK, and when we press OK, we'll generate our stitches. Now if we look closely, you can actually, what we see here is underlay these blue lines, but the pink is very open where the blue is closed. And on the opposite end, the pink is very closed where the blue is open. Let's go ahead and turn off the underlay so we can really see how that affects it. So here you can see a bit better. The blue is very open where the pink is very closed. And we will scroll up here, and the blue is very closed where the pink is very open. So they kind of shade into each other because of the percentages and the densities are opposite from each other. Thanks for watching the Introductory to Gradient Shading, and if you need any help, always you can email us at techsupport@prodigy, PRODIGIEMB.com, or you can give us a call at 636-724-6400. Thanks for watching.